Thank you very much. First of all, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very, very much for having me this evening. I'm replacing my very good friend Adrian KO8SCA, who is overseas, and unfortunately, wherever he is, it's about 3:30 in the morning right now, and he has some business to do tomorrow, and asked me to to take this mission over. And again, it's my pleasure and my honor to be with you tonight. To introduce myself, well, I have been a ham for probably, I don't know, maybe close to 60 years, about 58 so far. And I moved to Canada from Romania in 1992 on a position at university. And I started 3 years later in 1995 as VE3LYC. So that's been on the air for just a little over 30 years. And I'm a passionate DXer. I'm not a contester. I've done my contest days back when I was much, much younger. And one of my, I guess, ardent passions is to travel to remote places on the planet. The spirit of adventure and ham radio, I guess, managed to find a common house here in my soul. And I've been fortunate enough, primarily health-wise and family-wise, to be able to do that. And on these occasions, I operated from a number of islands, not probably most of them that known for their DXCC, DXCC, let's say, fame. Although I did a couple, I was in Hotel 40, I was in Hotel 44, I was in Zulu Lima 9, Zulu Lima 9 Alpha was the expedition, the IOTA expedition that changed the name of Auckland and Campbell entity to southern island, subantarctic islands of New Zealand. Altogether, I don't know. I've been in probably about 38 DXpeditions so far. Lots of them, probably half of them, maybe a little more than half of them by myself. That's because up in the Arctic, it's not that cool. I mean, it's cold, but it's not that cool. And I know I couldn't find partners to willing to spend some. I mean, they'd be willing to spend some days in beautiful places, in tropical areas, and so I kind of had to do that by myself. But I've been fortunate enough to travel with teams of 2, 3, 4 people. And obviously with 3Y0J back in 1993. There was a team of 12 and a team of 14, now 3Y0K. And without further ado, let me get to this. I'll try to let's say, share my screen, and you're going to have to let me know, please, if you see this on your screen. It's the title, 3Y0K. Do you see this on your screen?
We can see it fine.
Perfect. So that's the expedition that we're going to talk a little bit. And feel free to either stop me at any time, or, if you prefer, I'll try to be relatively quick. I don't want to abuse of your time, but we can have a chat at the end of this presentation, which I hope is not going to be too long. I'm not going to read much of what's on what you're going to see on the screen. You obviously can do that yourself. I'm just going to try to fill in some potential gaps there, so that the information will be a little bit more comprehensive. So, where's Bouvet? Well, I guess all of you know, but it is we're trying to show this just to give those who might not know where it is located. It's in Southern Atlantic, and because there's no significant landmass at that latitude, the prevailing westerly winds are very powerful. And obviously, this is not necessarily 24/7, 365 days a year. But Bouvet in particular has been known as a place of with a lot of stormy days throughout the year. So it could be over 300 days of storms a year. So it is definitely a little bit of a challenge. So my opinion is going to Bouvet. It's first and foremost an adventure. And once those who are undertaking this adventure manage to to stay well through it, then they can think of doing something else, such as operating and putting a DXCC on the air. We haven't been the first, and we're certainly not going to be the last. But it has been a thrill to feel pretty much what others have felt, where very few have felt so far. Now, the project at a glance, we wanted to use, I should say probably that following the end of the 23 expedition to Bouvet, a number of teammates felt some kind of a sense of unfinished business, if I can say that. We're not necessarily unhappy with the results given what we've been through, but it was a sense of unfinished business. The community it gave us a lot of sponsorship at the time, a lot of funds, a lot of donations, a lot of money, and I don't think that because of our inability to do things, perhaps there were some issues in planning, perhaps there was the team, the assembly of the team. It's difficult to say. In any case, that sense of a little bit of a frustration made us think very, very quickly of an opportunity to eventually reactivate that. I personally didn't, I confess that I didn't think it's going to come so fast. And since I was the oldest operator on 3Y0J, and I was the oldest operator for sure on 3Y0K, you know, too long of a delay might have come a little too late for me. So I was extremely pleased when the project has been initiated within months of the other one, of the end of the after the end of the previous one. But this time the scope was to try to aim to land people by helicopter. Now that required a vessel, and a vessel that would be with crew that has sufficient experience to sail into those waters. A sufficiently big boat to be able to hold not just the helipad, but also to store a large container, and to be able to be licensed for sailing in Antarctic waters. So now, at a glance, what we wanted to do, we wanted to go to Bouvet, be there for at least a couple of weeks. The entire voyage was estimated at 36 days, about 5 weeks. And we also wanted originally to operate 2 camps. We'll talk about this a little bit later. And we also wanted to have a backup plan, just in case for some unforeseeable event, either weather-wise or potential technical difficulties, the helicopter wouldn't be able to be deployed. We still wanted to not come back empty-handed. So we had a plan B, which was to use a Zodiac, and similar to what we attempted in 2023. However, the people who would handle that mission will be very few, and will be very strong, and will be very, let's say, well proofed for that kind of weather and conditions. And the only job they'll have to do would be to maintain the equipment, whereas the entire operation in that case would have been handled remotely from the vessel. Now, about Bouvet, perhaps you've seen this many times on YouTube or some other presentations. I'm not going to go over all of these elements, but what I'm going to mention though is that indeed Bouvet Island was at the time of this activation number 10 on the DXCC list, ranked number 10. It's been number 2, so we managed in 90 through the approximately 19,000 contacts to bring it down from number 2 to number 10. Was at some point number 11, but there was some other expedition after that, and so it was just prior to this one, to 3Y0K was number 10, and you pretty much know the rest of it. What I'd like to mention is that it is a Norwegian overseas territory, so similar to Peter 1, Jan Mayen, and Svalbard. So it has the same type of administration that those have. Now, these are this is the penguin colony that we've seen that we encountered in 2023, and the seals. And this is the list of all the previous activations that we knew of Bouvet. So roughly prior to this operation, there have been approximately 70,000 contacts made. So it was nice to be able to, well, at least brag that we were able to overpass, to surpass the sum of those. Now, regarding this vessel, its name was Argus, and it's a very powerful vessel. It has 2 powerful engines of 7,000 horsepower. It's been built in 1971 for the Danish government, operating some projects they have in the Arctic, and particularly primarily in Greenland, and it has a capacity of 48 berths and 37 of them in cabins. In our case, we've been allocated cabins of 1 and 2 people. Now, here is there are a couple of images. You see the vessel, the engines, and the refueling that took place the night of February 20th, and in very early hours of, I think it was about 2:00 a.m. or something like this, around 2:00 a.m. on February 21st, we took off. We managed to sail with one of the local pilots that had to take us out at sea. This was approximately a 3-week, I should mention this is approximately 3-week of a delay. We planned to board the vessel and leave Cape Town as of February 1st, but due to maintenance issues, vessel-related maintenance issues, it had to be postponed for almost 3 weeks. It was a daring time, and unfortunately, 5 of our colleagues, for one reason or another, they just couldn't delay their businesses. They couldn't make arrangements, and they could not join us. They had to withdraw. So in the end, only 14 team members were part of this voyage. I have to mention here that all of these cases were, I'm sure, emotional for them and for us, but none of them was as emotional as that of John Fox 6 Victor Hotel Queen, who actually traveled to Cape Town. He spent time with us. He saw the helicopter landing on the vessel, was on the vessel, helped us to move equipment from the container in other parts, storing it in other parts of the vessel, and then had to just disembark and say goodbye. So it was a very, very emotional moment, and I am kind of dedicating to him this presentation. So here's one of the two people berths. In my case, I shared the cabin, the 2-berth cabin. I shared the cabin with Adrian, and here's one of the emergency drills that we had that we are trained to, how to respond. Also, the place where we had our daily meetings on different topics, going over the plan over and over and over again over time in the most detailed ways. And the pilot, the captain chair, where I just took this photo for for just for fun. The cook, this is the assistant cook, did his best effort during during our voyage to serve, to prepare and to serve. The cooks, they did the best effort to prepare not something that was very well tasty, but also looked good, and it was absolutely presented in exceptional ways. I have to mention that because we had to sail through a storm, a very powerful storm. The speed of the boat combined with the direction of the wind determined the helicopter pilots to indicate that they fear that the helicopter may suffer some structural damage, either by the tail being bent or just metal fatigue. And as a result of that, the captain had to reduce the speed and had to sail in zigzag altogether. This led to a little more than 1 day of a delay. So instead of doing 5 days, our trip to Bouvet took a little more than 6. Now, these are just some photo to show you that we were sailing. It's difficult to see and to in a simple picture. Maybe this is a little bit of a, let's see, this is now. Yes, it's still a photo to see the power of nature and the waves and the wind and so on and so forth. But it was sufficient to make a lot of our team members suffer of seasickness. Some of them had more severe forms than others. I happens that I do not have the seasickness, and so didn't a few others. But most of our team and most of the group, we also had a few tourists who joined us. They suffered of seasickness quite a bit. Okay, well, it is a. Oh, so this was a video.
Not as many white caps, and whenever you see little bits of white come up, it's usually surfacing.
Okay, so that will give you a little bit of an idea. Now, the helicopter surface, we used Ultimate Aviation. It's not a small group. They have about 165 people, employees, and they also use a lot of contractors. Our helicopter pilots were contractors. We're contracted by them. They're out of Cape Town, and they do all sorts of missions, one more difficult than another. They were experienced with operations from Marion Landing to Marion Island, doing Antarctic bases, supplies for Antarctic bases, and all sorts of other missions in war zones and so on and so forth. Exceptional guys, and we kind of joked with them in the beginning, but there was no joke whatsoever. We kind of said, well, this is a big expedition. They kind of figure out what this was, and we gave them all sorts of examples to indicate what this amateur radio is all about. But we said, well, we think of ourselves that we're a pretty good group, so we need some very good pilots as well. So these guys are exceptional pilots, and not just their skills, but the attitude was incredible. So head off, they were seriously responsible for the success of this project. We are just here, just off Bouvet Island, and above you see them do one of the landings. So obviously we had to deal with things that are not necessarily that fun, as far as they're not part of amateur radio per se, but we had to do to check on contracts. We had to sign contracts with the vessel company, with the helicopter company, with a contract to contract Arctic Yachts, who provided us with guiding support. And we also had a financial agreement with a private group who provided 50% of the logistical cost of this expedition. And And also we had a team agreement with each, that had to be signed by each team member. Now, as I'm sure you know by now, because of so many expeditions that wanted to go to Bouvet over the last handful of years, the weather station in Niroisa, it's on the west coast. Unfortunately, that's out of, there's no permission that can be obtained from the Norwegian Polar Institute to operate from their grounds. Needless to say, during our departure, we noticed that the station itself is sitting precariously right on the edge of a cliff. That's because, as some of you may remember, the weather station, when it was built, I think in 78 or something like that, it was built as a result of a major landslide that cleared some area. Some additional landslide might have taken place these last few years, because right now the station is absolutely, I would be terrified to go inside the station, just the way it was inclined. It kind of reminded me the gold rush with Charles Chaplin's Gold Rush, when they kind of, I'm sure that you know what I'm talking about, when, he tries to go inside and there was his partner outside, otherwise, the cabin would have fallen off the cliff. That's exactly how the container that holds the station looks like nowadays. So in any case, we got permission to fly, and install a camp at a temporary camp at Cape Phi. It's in the southeastern corner of the island, and we actually were located most of the time on the east side. So the pilots flew from the east over the glacier into the camp. If the wind was good enough, the direction of the wind was, and the fog allowed, then the vessel would come more towards south, and then they would come directly. But most of the landings with people and gear have been carried out from the east over the glacier. Now, I should mention here too that at some point the intention was to create, very early in the process of planning of this expedition, there was intention to have a camp approximately where my cursor is right now, approximately 2 kilometers between these two. And 3Y0K was planned to have one camp in the former camp established by at the location of the former camp established during 3Y0J, and then another camp just as fully manned about 2 kilometers east on the coast. During the discussions with the two guides, Peter and Berger, they indicated that this is not going to be possible because there's no alternate evacuation. There's no contingency plan in case the helicopter cannot do it. So in other words, if the helicopter would not be able to recover us, then there's no way that we could either come on the through over the glacier or descend to the sea. And therefore, that was canceled. That idea was canceled. Then we came up with a second plan, the plan to deploy a second camp, not there, but approximately 700 meters west, from, not 2 kilometers, but about 700 meters. That was within an area that still allowed us to cross over the glacier. When just before we landed, this was the plan, to have these two camps. Now, because we didn't have any more the 24 people we wanted initially, not even the 19 that we would have had we left at February 1st, and we had only 14. The idea was that we'll have a fully manned camp at the lower location of previously where the previous expedition 3Y0J operated from. It's on a lower platform at Cape Phi, and we'll have just an operating tent with a few stations 700 meters away. And we'll keep going because I'll mention to you a little bit later what happened. So these are some images. This is from the south of the island. You see, this is Cape Phi. and this is from the east part of the island. So actually, we landed. We went over the glacier towards this Cape Phi. So this is from the east. The three photos here are from the east, and the photo up top, it's from the south. And this is a photo from atop the island during one of our, I guess, flybys. Okay. Now, before we go and talk about landing, we have to say that I have to mention that we were very well prepared, I think. We had 3 workshops in Oslo where we tested a lot of equipment, we packed a lot of equipment, and we managed to, we also, strap things so well that no matter what would happen, nothing would damage anything of the cargo. So this is a little bit how things were stored. They were the fuel, different types of fuel, the jet fuel and the gasoline. They were stored in steel drums, and plastic drums, sealed plastic drums were used for various components. The radios and the amplifiers were in pellet cases, and all the antennas were in ski bags or something that resembled a ski bag. We wanted to have ski bags for all, but not everything worked as planned. In any case, there were something that resembled a ski bag. And these are the generators here on top left. Now, here is some, operation. Let's see. I think we also have a chance to give you a little bit of an idea. Okay, so in the morning, right after we arrived on off the coast of Bouvet on February 27, we start making immediate plans for landing. We were not sure when we'll be able to land, but everybody had to know exactly what he's supposed to do. Not just us, but the crew, the vessel crew, the helicopter pilots, and their mechanic. So everybody worked together to best understand how everything will unfold. We also have a number of contingencies in case things wouldn't go that well. But luckily everything went exactly as planned. Except for the camps. We'll tell you something about that just in a minute. Sorry. Okay, so here's the situation that so this is where we wanted to have the main camp. This is where the camp on the lower platform of Cape Phi was in 2023. This is where 3Y0J operated from. And this is something that we called, Camp North America, just because it offered better takeoffs to North America, both to the north, to the west coast, to the Midwest, and to the East Coast. Now, the first flight that was taken on the early afternoon of February 28th was supposed to be a recon mission. We're supposed to be 3 guys. Was Ken, Dennis, and one of the guides, Peter, who went to check how we're going to set up camp, what are the conditions, so on and so on and so forth. We did have some photography, some satellite photography from the Norwegian Polar Institute, based on which we knew that the glacier retreated somewhat previous to what to its position in 2023 at Cape 5. But we had no idea that our recon mission people will see the beach with hundreds, at least, not perhaps thousands, but at least hundreds of seals. And this entire area here, which was much wider now, the glacier retreated about between 100 and 150 meters, so roughly about 500 feet, was full of seals. And we didn't have, there was an explicit condition in the permit we got from Norwegian Polar Institute that we should not disturb wildlife. Now, we're not sure exactly what that disturbance might have meant, but clearly landing through hundreds of animals wouldn't have, with a helicopter, wouldn't have been, I guess, an admissible thing to do, and so they didn't. It was very clear that there was only one camp that we're going to install, and that was very close to the upper platform. We'll call it Camp North America, call it just Camp 3Y0K because there was no other one. And this is how we ended up in that location. So now here are some antenna components, I guess. This is one of the two 12 70 meter beams, and the dual beams, and this is how we installed each one of the masts. And here's a nice view of the camp, in my opinion. It shows quite a bit of quite a few antennas. This is a 12. This is a both of these antennas are 12 and 15 meter, 17 meter dual banders. There are some other antennas here. I think it's here's the place where we installed the 20 meter and the 15 meter Yagis. And this antenna here, this antenna here was the one that we allocated for the vertical was the vertical for 160 meters. And the one that's a little bit bent in the wind, it's the one for 80 meters up there. So quite a few antennas. That gives you an idea of, on a good weather, on a very beautiful day, perhaps the most beautiful day that we had, how the camp looked like. And this is obviously a view towards the sea. So this is south view from the north to the south, roughly. But it didn't last long. Obviously, there's, at some point the wind comes in, brings rain, the rain transforms into snow, and the temperature gets around the freezing point. Now, with the wind, it's a lot, the wind chill effect is considerable, but we had to pull through. So one of the issues was that the wind was so powerful that a few of us who do not weigh that much, they don't weigh that much. They were kind of barely able to stand in the wind. But what you do, you make your way to the mast or to the guy wires, and you hold on to them and you fix them. And, if everybody works in sync, then the job gets done. So here's, right. So that guy who comes down, that's me. I didn't know, I didn't realize that until now, but anyway. Yeah, so it's snowing, as you see. It's snowing right now. This kind of looks like it's going to last. I'm going to jump a little bit. The generators are working intensely. Somebody's on shift, on operating shift. And some other guys have to fix some antennas or raise some antennas, whatever they have to do. That is the 160 meter, the one that you just seen there in front. social tent on the right, and all the other ones are sleeping tents. The 1217 Biobander, the water. The gas canisters are behind the water canisters. The food is pretty much in these canisters. And so anyway, so those who are not on operating shifts, were just maintaining equipment or installing new equipment, and or or if they had to do that, and if their shift began, somebody else would take over. They will lose their shift. They just keep going and doing and finishing what they have to do. The snow obviously would melt if the temperature would go 2, 3, 4 degrees. And this is another very, very beautiful view of the camp, in my opinion. Let's see. I think it's another video here. Oops. Just a second. No, there's no video. Okay, it's video here. Okay, let's try this one. So every shift, at the end of every shift, so the operating shifts were 6 hours long, and at the end of the shift, or just before the shift would end, those guys who had been there, they would have to, some of them would go out and would have to refill the generator. We'll have to check them out, just make sure that everything is okay, so that the new guys who would come and take over, particularly at night, they wouldn't have to waste time, filling the generators and taking care of that. They would just go and operate. Let me keep going with this. Oops. Yeah, so the other issue that is kind of important is that every now and then we would have some serious RF interference. And when we notice that, we would do something to minimize it. Obviously, if we can pick a different frequency, that would be the easy thing to do. But sometimes we had to do something else. We had to change maybe from a vertical antenna to a vertical dipole, or maybe we'd have to simply physically move the antenna. So we would just move it, 40 meters, 30 meters, 50 meters, whatever. And if this happened, then, it could happen right in the middle of the shift and the operating shift. And if you notice that, and the other guys were busy with other stuff, then, just have to do it and, get a partner and doing it. So that's, yeah. So anyway, here's the beverage antenna that we had. And yeah, well, one of the challenges was to actually remember what day it was. And sometimes we is it the 10th or the 9th, including what day of the week. So it was the FT8 that helped us, because just looking at FT8, we would know exactly, and that would resolve the debate, the argument. So it's a little bit of a joke, but it's half joke, half serious. There was one day, and most of the beautiful photos that you see here in beautiful weather with blue sky were taken that day, when the temperature raised to 19 degrees Celsius. Not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's got to be around 60, 65, I guess. So 19 degrees Celsius is, and there was very, very, very little, if any, wind. And so for some of us decided that we're going to take a dip in one of the glacial lakes. It was very cold, of course, but some of us slept better than night, perhaps better than at any other time, just because, how this worked on the body, the cold of the water and the beautiful day and the warmth of the day and so on and so forth. Keep in mind that this was after we decided that this was the day when we had to offer everyone a chance to do a flyby. So we stopped for not very long, maybe an hour, maybe something like that. And in teams of 3, we went, and for a few minutes we went around the island with a helicopter. It didn't last very long because it had to be cut short because the fog would come, and there was not necessarily the wind, but the fog that determined the pilots to, abandon this, the pleasure, offering the pleasure. Now, I have to confess that the pileups were sometimes very rowdy. And yeah, when we looked at how the chicks were waiting for their food in line from their parents, I kind of had this idea. There's probably not the better, title to say, well, penguin chicks had better pile-up discipline. It's a joke, of course, but you know where I'm coming from. Now, keep in mind that this penguin colony is the same penguin colony that was about 15 meters from Camp 3Y0J, from the actual tent. 15 meters was about 50 feet from the 3Y0J camp, very, very close to one of our antennas at the time. We didn't go in there, but the penguins would cross to water very frequently. So our roads kind of intersected. They go to water, we go to number 1, and everybody's happy. But the seal that you saw was one of many which were now present and took over Camp 3Y0J, as I already mentioned to you. Now, here's a daytime operating position. The 5 guys, sometimes 6. So we run 5 or 6 stations at times. And at night, we operated, I don't know if I have a photo, maybe not. We'd be operating, normally 4, but sometimes 3 people, just because the band would slowly close, and the only ones remaining would be 160, 80, and sometimes 40, but perhaps not very, very long. There were a few days, maybe 2-3 days, when the propagation closed on even 40 and 80 quite early. Now, ICOM has to be mentioned in this context because they provided a lot of equipment, and we are very grateful to them. Everything worked perfectly. We never had any equipment, any ICOM equipment that failed. So I'm not sure how much they tested it specifically for this operation, but we were very, very, very happy with them. Here's some other operating positions. Whatever is you see on the bottom left, that one is there's 2 auroras, the 500 watt, the new equipment. This was this particular units were used during the 5 November Juliet expedition to Jarvis Island. And here's on the top right, it's a typical nighttime shift, where usually Vadim, UT5 UD, would be the guy who would be in charge of the 160 meters. But exceptionally, I had the chance that night to operate. Unfortunately, the propagation was only good for FT8. I couldn't do any CW. In 3Y0J, during 3Y0J, I deliberately took a third of my shifts in CW, a third in SSB, and a third in FT8. There were not that many people who wanted to do SSB, and there were even less who wanted to do less operators who wanted to do FT8 at the time. But now, because we had a lot of more operators, and we only had 8 operators of the 12 who embarked. Now we had almost twice as many, 14. great guys. And because of that, because we had so many guys and, everybody wanted to operate different things, whatever, I probably did about 80% of my operating time, maybe 85%. Hope I'm not exaggerating, in CW. Now, also, we are very grateful to AECOM. AECOM was also a premier sponsor for us, and they also provided us with a lot of equipment. There was one, what happened, the 160-meter antenna was, for the winds and the conditions, was probably, the mast was probably a little too elastic, too flimsy, too fiberglass for 20 some meters. That wasn't perhaps the best choice of antenna. In any case, what happened is that in the wind, as the wind would blow, the SWR would change tremendously at times. So it was a continuous fight that primarily Vadim and Goodme, TF3SG, and LATSI, the gentleman from NI, HA0NAI. So they spent a considerable amount of time, particularly Vadim, trying to fix in real time to the guying and try to strap the antenna just a little bit better to reduce that SWR so they can make a few more contacts. I don't think it worked extremely well, but some guys were happy. They made it, and we were just happy to give them Bouvet on 160. Probably not a lot of interest in North America for QO100, just because the satellite is not really available. It's not covering, the Qatar satellite does not cover that part of the world, but the guys in Europe were very happy, and we made quite a few contacts. I think about 2,500 contacts were done in roughly about 2,500 or so in satellite mode. Food, there was a social tent where we had our dehydrated meal, or MRE, the meals ready to eat. The MREs, we had 13 types of meals. And I could give you the names. I'm just going to tell you, though, that after a couple of days, they all have perhaps not the same texture, but the same taste. So the idea of choosing one versus the other was more of a fantasy. But I don't think that anybody really had the, had a specific way of appreciating one versus the other. So, pretty much you pour water. There's just different amounts of water for different types of meals, slightly different for one, slightly more for one than for the other, and then you mix it, and you're supposed to let it sit for. So you boil water, you put it, you mix it for about 5 minutes, maybe leave it for about 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then if you eat it within the next 5 minutes, is pretty good. It's pretty good. If you let it cool, then it's not very good. So, but no complaints so far. Nobody lost enormous amount of weight. So I think it worked very well. The sleeping conditions, we were having, so when I took this photo, my position was the one with the green bag, and Adrian was to my right. To the left, I have Dennis, Reagan, Oscar Yankee 1 Romeo, and Ken LA7GIA. By the way, Dennis is Kilo Tango 8 X-ray. So what we decided to do, we decided to have a combination for the entire team of cots and mats. Some people prefer the cots. And I wasn't sure that I prefer the cots, but I decided that I'm going to take the mat. At some point, when during one of the shifts, when Adrian was at night, I said, "Well, listen, I'm gonna sleep in your cot, and just want to try to see, what I'm missing." And when you come in the morning, because my shift wasn't right after his, just give me a good push and I'll get down on the mat. Perfect. So I went to bed on his cot, and about an hour and a half after that, I just I just woke up, and it was so cold that you can possibly, why? Because I had a draft on top above me and a draft inside me. So I was, almost on an airplane, or outside of an airplane or something. Well, I'm of course exaggerating. So I thank him very much, and I said I will never ever use anything but my mat. So at least it's cold because it's from the ground, but I don't have the draft. So that's how it went. Now, here's the team. These are the 14 guys who managed to make it to Bouvet. And you can read them all by yourself. It's Ken. Well, I'm just going to say Vadim, Goodme, the guy, Tango Foxtrot 3 Sierra Golf. This is Lotzi, the gentleman from Hungary. Dennis, Kilo Tango 8 X-ray. The young Max, he's 22 years old. November 4, Mike Lima. Alex, the young Alex, he's only 27. Delta Lima to Alpha Lima Yankee. Ken, LA7 GIA. And Bob, W9 AP, who's just a few months younger than me. Then we have Stian from Norway, Adrian, myself, Reggie, Oscar Yankee 1 Alpha, Oscar Yankee 1 Romeo, and IK2 Donato, Italy Kilo 2 Echo Golf Lima. We also had a few tourists. Two of them were doctors, were medical doctors. Julia, who happened to receive her license the day we landed on Bouvet, her amateur radio license, the day we landed on Bouvet. She partnered with Alex for a 1 year residence at Neumayer Station in Antarctica, and was very, very happy to be part of this adventure as well. Now, the log, the tally. What can I tell you? I'm not going to comment on this. I'm sure there may be questions, and I'm prepared to answer them. About 62% or so of the QSOs were in FT8, and more, quite a few more in CW than in SSB. Continent-wise, North America is set at 16.8. And again, I'm prepared to answer questions about that. Now, a big thank you to our sponsors. Without them, this wouldn't have been possible. Particularly, well, I already mentioned ICOM and ACOM, but there were others as well. DX Engineering, they gave us a lot of equipment, cable, all the antenna cables and a lot of other small components. Then, of course, Northern California DX Foundation, they provided us with with a very, very significant grant. Plus, they sponsored either fully or partly Max's participation. That's November 4, Mike Lima, and Alex's Delta Lima to Alpha Lima Yankee. All the others, they also contributed in different ways to the success of this adventure. Now, the project itself kind of left it for the end. It was $1.7 million, of which $1.4 million were spent for vessel and helicopter services for 36 days. It was the most expensive expedition ever. And the funds came in part from the members, from the team members, who paid more than approximately $450,000. We also had the outside financing from the private group, who, as I mentioned, paid actually a little bit more than 50% of the cost of logistics. And they also have donations from many groups. The largest were from Northern California DX Foundation, if I'm not mistaken. Their grant just for the expedition was on the order of $150,000. Indexa, I think they also gave us about $20,000, and a lot of other individual operators from around the world. The lists of all the groups and all the members of the individual hams are presented at on our website. And for those who wish to see them, they can obviously analyze them there. We appreciate the support, your support, and the support of every single person and every single group who are part of this project. Now, I should say that as part of the tally, we were able to log hams in 180 DXCCs, and we brought Bouvet to date from number 10 to number 37 or 38, as I checked it last time. So I'm sure that once the full log will be uploaded, there's another few months from now, we'll probably go below 40. So I think it's a significant achievement, and it's difficult to express how the sense of accomplishment that everybody had once we were back on the vessel, and how much we hugged ourselves, with the pilots, with the crew, with everyone. So it was just some minutes of exceptional happiness. What's next? We plan to go to PETA 1. That's some of us, some of the team members will join 3 Yankee Zero Lima. It's a project that we're working very hard to make it, to bring it to life, and is intended for February 2027. And that's all I can say at this point, before thanking you again for for having me here, and be patient enough to listen to this presentation. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to address them.
Cezar, I'm Rob, WA3IHV. Thank you very much for a very encompassing and enriching talk about this very expensive DXpedition. We really enjoyed it. I'll pass the microphone around.
Thank you.
Hi, Cezar. This is Bud, AE6BH, and thanks for the email earlier today. It's perfect that we managed to put that together, and thanks for filling in for Adrian. It's great, and a wonderful presentation, and I'm extremely grateful to have managed one contact with you.
Well, I'm happy that you made one contact with us. Many guys wanted to have just one for their for the new DXCC, or perhaps one for a specific mode they needed, or some band. But there were a lot of guys who did manage to work us on many bands and many modes, and some of the guys duped, and not very happy with that. But we have to. We will take it. So we're happy if they were happy. What can I say? It was a mission from my point of view, and I think on behalf of the entire team, I can say that this time it was mission accomplished.
Hi, Noel, Alpha Golf 6 Kilo Alpha. I noticed the 2023 year, you had a lot more QSOs that time. Was it because of the location or the amount of time operating? Thank you.
In 2023, we had a little under 19,000. So now we had 102. Yep. In 2023, we only had 2 stations. We operated with wire antennas, and we only had 100 watts. The gist of it is that we planned the expedition using a yacht, and the yacht was not a very small yacht. It was about 100 foot, 103 feet. So it's a pretty good sized yacht. But yacht had this rule we imposed that we cannot use gasoline. So we had just a few liters of gasoline. Well, when I say a few, there might have been, 20 liters, 30 liters or something like that, which we intended to use for boring machines, for drilling anchors into the rock for holding the tent, or some of the antennas. But the operation was supposed to be done for the actual operation. We're supposed to use some diesel generators, and each diesel generators was about 110 kilograms. So that's, I don't know exactly, but about 130, 140 pounds, 240 pounds. That's a pretty heavy beast. And it was what we wanted to do back then. We wanted to install a trolley system, which was tested and worked fine in Norway. But unfortunately, in the enthusiasm and due to the fact that only few of us, only 8 out of 12 team members decided to land, you know, and the way the tent installation, the camp installation took place was late in the day, stormy conditions, everything rushed. We did not install the trolley system. And a week later, when we kind of thought, well, maybe we should bring one of those generators for a few more days. Well, it was too late. There was a vote at the time that the team leadership decided to do to carry out, and that the team, they were split. 6 wanted to go home, 6 wanted to stay, and the team leaders decided to go. That's why we only made 19,000 contacts, or slightly under. Now we made over 100,000 contacts, so there's no similarity between the two. We operated, I think we had about 12 antennas on different bands, including 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Yagis on 10, 12, 20. Sorry, on 2 on 12 and 17, 1 on 10, 1 on 15, and 1 on 20 meters. So 5 Yagis, and the rest a combination of dipoles or vertical dipoles. And we used amplifiers. I mean, I think that I was the only person who ever used anything less than 500 watts. I sometimes used the 300 watts, 400 watts a while, because I wanted to control the pileup, so that we'll make it a little more easy and keep the rate going. But everybody else would push the amplifiers to the limit. So there's no similarity between the two expeditions.
Yeah. Hi, this is Bob W.
Other than the fact that they were both operating from somewhere near Cape Phi.
Okay, this is Bob W6ACU. I had a question, just a general question regarding the vessel. Now, obviously, you had to make these arrangements months, if not a year ahead of time. And then you had that 3-week period when it was under maintenance, and then you had an extra day to get there. How did that all work out in the end?
Well, it worked out in the end very well, because what happened is that you're absolutely correct. The maintenance took longer than the I guess the company expected. At least that's the version that we were told, and therefore we had no choice. We would either had to postpone this expedition for a year, or delayed until eventually the two of us get together, the vessel and its crew and the team. And after a lot of discussions and pondering, the leadership decided that we will stay in the game. We will not take any detour, and we'll go. We'll wait for them to do whatever they can and whenever they can. But there was a crunch time, and had they not been able to come when they did, which was I think they arrived in Cape Town on February 17th, had that would have been delayed for another 3-4 days, we would have had to the contract that we signed would have allowed us to cancel the expedition, not to postpone it. We were not mandated to postpone it. We would have just canceled, and then how we would recover the money, well, that's another story. We'll, we were not there, but we could have canceled the expedition. However, you know, we knew that they're already on the way, and yeah. Now, what happened in the meantime? We obviously had to pay some delay time on the contract with the helicopter, because the helicopters were supposed to be there in time. They allocated them, and then guess what? The whole thing had to be postponed for 3 weeks. We did not, well, while we did pay that amount, we recovered that money from the vessel company. So from a material point of view, from a financial point of view, this delay, in a way or in one way or another, led to some of our teammates, 5 of them, not being able to join. So yeah, there's a loss for us, if you want. And also there's a loss for the rest of the guys, because, you know, we were much longer in Cape Town, and perhaps this doesn't have much to do with that particular delay, but perhaps it does. Keep in mind, while we're on Bouvet, a war started in the Middle East, or at least some actions that could be equivalent to some kind of a war. And as a result of that, now any change in tickets, we didn't know exactly when we'll be back. So we just bought ourselves some tickets. Now the tickets were 3 times more expensive than would have been otherwise. Me in particular, I had to stay another week doing virtually nothing in Cape Town. Well, I did work related to the project, because there's a lot of work after the project that we have to do. So yeah, I worked on that, but I could have done it at home. However, I had to do it there, because spending another week at the hotel was almost 4 times less expensive than the cost of changing my ticket. At least in my particular case, that's exactly what happened. By the way, I wasn't alone. There were 3 other guys in this situation. So yeah, we incurred some losses. Keep in mind that all site travels to Oslo, travels to Cape Town, all the accommodation or everything related to those were supported directly by each team member. So in some cases, some guys who, you know, they have daily jobs, they say, well, I can't, you know, for me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pay $4,000. I'm going to get out of here. $3,000. I'm going to get out of here. Sure. Because probably that week he's making, I don't know, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. But for the other guys who remain there, well, not everybody's the same situation, right? So obviously that delay affected us, but not to the point of changing the mission. So we thought that the vessel, we're very happy when we met the vessel crew. By the way, we had an opportunity to see the vessel and to meet with the captain in Portugal earlier that year, earlier in 2025. I wasn't taking the trip, but a few other guys, and one of my my friends, one of the other co-leaders, took the trip. So the captain and the first engineer and the rest of the guys were extremely professional, and we kind of jived very well with them. So based on that, we decided to hang in there, and I guess it panned out in the end.
Anyone have any other questions? See?
Now, there were a few, I don't know how to say this, a few interesting moments that maybe I should, if there's patience for another 5 or 6 minutes, I'm going to tell you a couple of little stories. So first of all, the tents we used were not, when we went in 2023, there was hardly any gravel. There was no gravel. There was just big basalt, and you had to drill it in it in order to anchor pretty much anything. Maybe we found a couple of big rocks, but no, there was no gravel. Now there was gravel everywhere, because when the glacier retreated, it uncovered all that gravel, and perhaps due to the elements, just the way they work, it created that, the difference in temperature created that enormous amount of gravel. So the tents were not meant to be installed on gravel or on rocks. They're supposed to be installed on the ground, on earth. Therefore, despite the fact that each tent had a very, very strong skirt, on which we put as many boulders as we could, make sure that it's as stable as possible. Well, it did flutter a tiny little bit. And that fluttering over so many hours under so powerful winds, it pretty much destroyed that, it wrecked those skirts. So it was an interesting experience. One of the most aggravating was with the tent that the guides built for number 2. That was a little bit outside the camp, but the tent was much more flimsy than the big tents we use for sleep and operating and social tent and so on and so forth. So the skirts for the small tent used for number 2 had to be fixed, had to be repaired, and believe it or not, they had to be sawed by the medical doctor because so anyway, it was kind of funny how the maintenance crew worked on that. The other issue was that now, besides that gravel, something that we've never had in 2023, we've never witnessed in 23 any sand. Well, there was sand on the beach, sure, but not on the mountain, not next to the glacier. Now, the wind didn't even have to be that powerful. When it was powerful, I mean, you had sand like that black, that black volcanic sand everywhere in your mouth, in your eyes, in everything. Now, mouth and eyes, we can deal with that, but we couldn't deal with was the zippers. So the tents had open doors, the doors that opened to get in and out the tent had big zippers. Well, that zippers got pretty much destroyed by this very abrasive, very fine type of sand that was everywhere and on everything. I remember that before we repacked the amplifiers and the radios. I was part with Adrian. I was part of the radio team. I had a big towel, and I just simply, when I wiped this out, when I wiped this equipment, every single piece of equipment, there was like a thick, a serious amount of sand, kind of like a thick dust, looking like thick dust on top of everything. Well, but the zippers, one of the zippers, which was the most intensely used, was the zipper of the social tent. So the social tent, perhaps about 3 days before the end of the expedition, before the shutdown, was completely destroyed. So in order to not open in the wind and not blow in the wind, the top half of the zipper was solidly sawed. So it's just now not acting as an opening thing. And the bottom part, in order to stay closed, the guys put a very heavy piece of rock, kind of like, just imagine getting into a cave like the Flintstones or something. Well, that's how it looked like. Now, in order to get in and out the tent, you had to squat very, very low and to bend as low as you could. Keep in mind that this was so challenging that some of the guys would only want to go in the social tent in extreme conditions, maybe once a day, twice at maximum. So it became a little bit, all of a sudden, the social tent was not as populated as it used to be. So there are little things like this, which are part of the day-to-day life, which, are kind of interesting kind of storytelling, but very different, in my opinion, than 2023. We had a certain vetting process by which we tried to have individual discussions with all the team members at the time of them joining the expedition. and not only discuss of the challenges that some of us knew from 3Y0J, but also investigate a little bit, their health conditions, if there are any elements that could be of surprise. We had a gentleman in 2023 who, while we were on the island and he did not come, had a kidney stone. And the captain was absolutely paralyzed because he didn't know what to do. The guy was in excruciating pain. And later we found out, he found out and we found out from him that actually our colleague had such kind of a thing, had kidney stones once or twice kind of every year-ish. So yeah, something like that was now inadmissible. We tried to discuss with them and explain how, yes, it is a challenge and it's a thrill for everyone, but it could endanger the team. If something like this happened, we all lose, because we can't, in 2026, it's just not going to be, there's no excuse for not returning and saving the life of that individual if we could, right? So we can't just say we continue and, well, you have to sit there and wait. We'll finish the expedition, then we go home. No. So all these things were part of a process that I was also part of, which is the hazard identification and risk mitigation. And, for the best of our abilities, we try to identify all those hazards. Well, fair enough. We didn't identify the camp location that was deemed to be, to not have a contingency, which was with the help of the two guides. But we identify all sorts of other issues, and we discuss them in advance with each and every single member of our crew. So I think that it was a very powerful team. And I think that one of the subtitles of one of the articles that I'm submitted to one of the radio magazines is the meaning of team spirit. That's the subtitle of an article about 3Y0K. So yes, it was a team that every one of us, I think, should be proud to have been a part of. And we had guys from 22 to 71 years of age in reasonably good shape. And I hope that the youngsters have enriched their I guess, experience. And, hopefully they'll be among those who knows, maybe will return one day to Bouvet.
I'm W8 Queen Zulu Alpha, and I'm a QRP only station for the last 37 years. And you gave me number 331.
Yes.
Finally.
And you were from North America.
I wanted to thank you for that.
Well,
I'm 86 years. I'm 86 years old. I didn't think I'd make it.
Well, let me ask you: what mode was that in?
It was FT8, and it was long path on 20 meters. So,
okay.
Yeah, you could hear pretty well down there. I wanted to ask you what you thought about that Super Fox mode. I don't think you used it, did you?
No, we did not use the Super Fox. This was a decision that was discussed. It was a proposition that was discussed, and in the leadership group. And we have a certain structure. In the end, somebody has to make a decision. So we can lead by committee, or we decided not to lead by committee. We have an organization, and each co-leader was in charge of organizing a number of activities, from fundraising to the radio equipment, the risk assessment, and many other, ancillary logistics, and on and on and on and on. But ultimately, this decision to not use the Fox was perhaps a little controversial, but to use the Super Fox. There were some members of the team who kind of wanted to do that. There were some others who were against it. thinking that it will confuse the DXers. We probably, operating a Super Fox may not have to be necessarily something 24/7. Maybe we'd have started with Super Fox, perhaps on a couple of bends that are very crowded, or more, but very crowded for a little while. But then perhaps we would have changed. And in the end, the team leader decided that we're not going to use the Super Fox. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah, right. It was pretty new, and I agree with your thoughts about confusion. That
No,
could have been quite confusing.
Well,
Did you have?
There's one issue, but there's another issue which is kind of important as well. Super Fox would not be able to, I mean, for the beginning of at the beginning of the pileups, when pretty much the big guns, well, they're gonna have the power to work as first. It wouldn't matter. Super Fox could be used. But later on, particularly in relatively not as great of a propagation conditions, the sensitivity of the regular WSGTX, for instance, it's much higher. Probably Super Fox would go down to, I don't know, minus 16, 17, maybe 18. The WGTX would go down to minus 24. So there's some differences there. I'm not trying to defend the decision. It was a decision, and we had to move on. And the idea was that somebody had to make it, and some decisions were made by the team leader.
Thank you. Did you have any bad medical problems on this? Any emergencies on this trip?
No. We the medical doctor was very useful to saw the tent for that we use for number 2. It was a very important issue, and the wind was so powerful that some guys had to hold on to the tent, and he would have to, somebody would have to do the sawing. And in the end, was the team doctor who did that. Now, it may be possible that I think that on the vessel, we had a number of guys who, for one reason or another, among those who had the seasickness issue, that for one reason or another, they kind of wanted to try different other type of pills or whatever they were using. And that was very useful because the doctors not only had access to the medicine that was available on the vessel, but they would know how to administer that. And, this would prevent, let's say, anybody from doing any stupid thing, i.e. taking too much, too long of some of these pills. They're not supposed to be administered for longer than I don't know how many days, or this, or so on and so forth. So the doctors would be looking after that. Perhaps this was the major or the only issue that they really had. I don't recall if we ever used anything else, but I don't remember. People were feeling good, or at least they didn't say they don't. I think in the second half of our stay, perhaps during the last few days, I think that there were signs that some of the guys were a little I don't know, maybe not quite as prompt as and quick as they were day 1, day 2. So, for example, you wanted somebody to say, "Hey, guys, I need 2 people to help me to move the antenna from the 30-meter antenna. We need to move about 40 meters. Who's coming?" And okay, let's say, I don't know, Joe, Jim, and they say, sure, go ahead, we'll be there in 2 minutes. Now, that didn't happen a week earlier. They would just jump right away, but they would come 2 minutes later. They would just and they would come. So there was there was an exceptional camaraderie, I'd say, and this idea from the very beginning that we kind of had to act as the Marines, i.e., watch for the others. You'll have so many eyes watching for yourself, for you, not watch for yourself. That was something that I think everyone. I remember another element which is kind of interesting. One of the guys, one of the most powerful guys physically, was James W70Y. At some point, James was, I don't think it was with me, but with somebody else. He was just carrying one of these 55 kilograms, so whatever is that, 110, 150, 110, 150 pounds masts. And, there's an inclined, I don't know, 30 degrees, 35 degrees incline, maybe 40, maybe 45. And the wind is blowing like there's no tomorrow. And one of the two guys, not him, he's not a very heavy guy, but he's pretty sturdy, was, kind of bouncing in the wind with the end of the mast. So finally, they managed. They brought the mast up there, whatever they had to do it, because I saw them. And then the next one, James said, "Okay, well, listen, let me do this. I think I can do this. I can do this." And then you can see James in the wind going with a mast on his shoulder, just going up the hill. It was just impressive, So yeah, things like that happened, and I think that people helped each other, and as much as they could in different moments, and that automatically brought some enthusiasm. There was an infusion of trust, and yeah, we'll help you pass quicker the moments that are not necessarily the most pleasant, right? So yeah, so I think that the team held on very, very well up to the end, up to the moment that they were back on the vessel. So
Great. Well, Cezar, thank you very much. Oh, did somebody have a question? No. Okay. Thank you very much. Congratulations on a very successful DXpedition, and also a safe one. Keeping in mind, of course, that distant or time-wise, you were farther from medical care than the astronauts that go to the moon.
Yep.
So,
well, yeah, you're right. It's the other kind of element that I perhaps should mention, even for Justina, is that it's very difficult. We'd like to say, the team members like to say this was a successful expedition. Well, yeah, depends on your definition of success, right? So the fact that we came back unhurt, and we came back in excellent shape back in 2023 as well. So that was a successful expedition that way, right? But we didn't have that feeling of accomplishment, somehow. Yeah, I've been there, I came back, was kind of cool. What could be nice, but what could be more thrilling than swimming to shores of Bouvet? But that's not why we went there. We went there to make so many guys happy, and we received so much trust through the support that we received from the community, and the fact that we had this feeling that we haven't raised to the level of trust that these guys I guess entrusted us with already. I don't want to repeat myself, put in us. That didn't make us feel good at all. And somehow, the level of funding now that we benefited from, individuals and groups were not at the same level as 3Y0J. I can't blame anybody for that, because many of those who donated now also donated then. So it's their decision, and we respect it very, very much. But we tried the best we could to make sure that this was an opportunity that we're not going to miss at this fabulous cost. The fact that we had a benefactor who was willing to support more than 50% of the cost of logistics. It's something that we felt that we have to take advantage of. Yes, it's going to be costly for each and every single one of us, but if we don't do it, then who is going to do it, and when? And are we ever going to have another chance like this? So it was a little bit of a crucial decision for us, if you want. And this is why we did not want to cancel the trip or postpone the trip, because we were linked to this individual who was so, if you want, generous, but at the same time, we don't know how much he would take it or how far he would be willing to go. So we wanted to use, not to abuse, and so on and so forth. So with a lot of pieces, moving parts in this, and overall, ultimately, well, we feel good and we felt a sense of accomplishment, but it's ultimately the DXers, is the guys. There's a synergy here between the DXer and the activator. The DXers have no sense. Well, we have the pleasure of going and doing the adventure. Great. But for the radio expedition point of view, there's no sense of going there if there are no chasers. So this is a symbiotic thing where we leave it out of you and you leave out of us. So, and because all the activators, I think, are also expeditioners, are also DXers, they do understand this very, very well. And so we are together in this. As a matter of fact, every single one of you was with us. It was in our minds, not individually. I mean, I didn't know many of you before, so but we had to be there. We knew that we had to wake up. We have to do it. It's an obligation. We have to do it. We took the responsibility, and we got to do whatever we have to do. So it's more to discuss about this, but perhaps some other time in some other way. So I published a book a few years back about my IOTA expedition. It's called Dream Big and Dare to Fail, and I only have about 3 or 4 copies left. They're not with me. They're only 1 in the States left and 3 in Europe, and I have no intention to reprint it. I've already printed a couple of times. I'm preparing eventually. I would like to prepare a sequel. We'll see if Peter 1 comes, but there's sufficient elements for a new one, and that's the place where probably we can talk more about these aspects, which are perhaps not as obvious, and they require a little more thinking before being put down on paper. So. But anyway, so I do thank you very, very much, guys, for the patience and for having us. I'm just lucky to get today to replace Adrian, but I'm convinced that every single one of Team Bouvet would have made a presentation that would be hopefully enjoyable. Hopefully this one was.
Thank you again. If you could unshare your screen.
Yes.
If you could unshare your screen, that would be good. Good. Perfect. And also, we're going to have a round table here. It's late in Ontario. You're welcome to stay, or if you'd like to leave, you're dismissed. But thank you again from the DX San Diego.
I'll probably leave you guys. I wish you a very, very good night and good DXing, and I look forward to give you another rare one in February next year.
You're on. Great. Well, thanks very much. 73. Good evening.
Rob,
Thank you so much, guys. Bye-bye, 73. Cheers. Cheers.
Rob?
Bye-bye.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Mark, KF6WTN. Before he goes, 2 of us in the room here are electronics engineers. Back in the early 90s, we developed a device called Relief Band. Neither of us has any stock or anything, but it will eliminate motion sickness. Looks like a watch. You wear it on the inside of your wrist, but since it's not a pill, the doctors don't particularly like prescribing it.
Right.
It was originally developed for radiation and chemo after cancer, but it's since been approved for pregnancy and motion sickness And then the FDA said that they don't even need a prescription for it anymore. So you could just buy it online. So you might want to think about that because it doesn't have all the Dramamine side effects. The downside of it is that you got to be real careful in positioning it on the inside of your wrist to get it to work. So considering that you've got a crew that you need to be 100%, you might want to look at that.
Okay, Mark, I'm writing this down, and we'll let the guys know next time. We'll talk about this a little more.
Yeah, my mother-in-law had chemo, and she practically lived with the thing for months until she eventually passed away.
I've got one right here.
Oh, there. Hi, Andy. That's
Hi,
the
Mark.
other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
See, it's got a couple of electrodes on the back.
right.
Delivers a little pulse that varies over time. You put a little conductive gel on your wrist.
EKG gel.
Yeah.
I understand. Well,
Anyway.
what I can tell you is that the trip to Peter 1 is supposed to be more challenging because we have to go through the Drake Strait. And, I've been once through the Drake Strait when I operated from, off the coast of Cape Horn. There's an archipelago. I don't know. I think it's less than about 100 miles southwest. It's called Diego Ramirez, and but I only was there for a little bit. I mean, now we have to go for much longer. So so it happens that I don't have any seasickness at all. I've never had it. I don't know what it is. I understand as a physicist what it is, but I don't have
Consider
it.
yourself lucky.
Yes, but many of other guys had, and they were alternating different type of medicine and this and that with side effects. And you're right. Yeah, and the issue is that they were mostly in the bunk, and there was not. It doesn't seem to be something pleasant at all. So I have your name, I have your call sign. We'll get in touch with you. I let the guys know, and we'll have to include it in our we have for each of these expeditions we put together what's called a manual. Now, a manual means that every single activity that we focused on has a section, has a chapter, and we not we don't include any electronics and things like that, but we have procedures and different recommendations for the guys. We had recommendations on clothing, on all sorts of things, right? So that's so we'll one of us will approach you, whoever's going to be in charge of this stuff, and don't think of the medical doctors. We'll try it. Why not? For sure.
Sure. You can just find me at my call sign at Gmail.
Yep. Yeah. I already wrote your call sign, and I'll put it in the file for Peter 1. Health and hazards.
Okay, we're going to start the roundtable.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thank you all for coming this evening. It's the June meeting, so we have a new slate of officers, but no one came forward, so the previous year's slate is going to stay on for another year. Our treasurer couldn't be here tonight. He's in Las Vegas, so we may have to investigate that. The bash is coming up July 19th. So if you haven't RSVP'd, please RSVP to me either at my call or my SMS. It's listed on the newsletter. It's so that we can get a count for the caterer. This is the 80th year of the anniversary of the DX Club, although that's controversial. And being that I'm president, I declare it's the 80th year. Well, we invited Orange County. We also invited the Southern California Contest Club, and I haven't heard that much. So far, I have about 25 RSVPs. Oh, I did already, and I also got Bill Kendrick. Yeah, earlier this week I contacted him, and I also contacted Jim Shrine, who does the web for Southern California DX Club, or what's left. We also had a patch made with the 80th anniversary, and we'll pass those out at the bash. I'll send them around, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bud. We'd also like to try and have a little show and tell for all of the meetings. So Bud has a little show and tell to show.
All right. Otherwise, nothing to report ham radio wise. I've been busy with children and college graduations and things like that, and getting kid moved to St. Louis. So it's been a non-ham month or two. But I was helping Rob the other day at his house with pulling in some new antenna cables into some of his deteriorated conduit, and what, about 150 feet worth of cable,
About 220.
and
times two.
times two, yeah, that we pulled out to the antenna tower. And I noticed when we were putting the cables into his junction box out at the tower that we had to punch out some conduit plugs that he had there in the box. And these cables that he had procured from DX Engineering were all pre-terminated. So you can't get one through a cable gland. So I came home and I was pondering it. And I went, I wonder if somebody's designed a clamshell 3D printable cable gland. And indeed, they had. And it's a parametric design, which means through this program called OpenSCAD, you can specify the diameter of the hole you're trying to put your gland into, the diameter of your cable that you're putting through it, and the height that you want it to be, the height of the nut that you want it to be. And he's running LMR 400. I'll pass this around. You guys can play with it. And it's called OpenSCAD. And sure enough, somebody had designed this parametric design that you just specify what you want, and it prints it right out. Now, I printed him a test piece out of what's called PLA, which is altogether unsuitable for outdoor exposure for any length of time. But I'll reprint him once he's tested this on his cables and junction box. If it all fits, I'll reprint it probably in ABS, black ABS, which holds up very nicely in the weather. And but I was just fascinated that somebody had already done this, which so many times when you go to design something in 3D for 3D printing, if you look around the internet, most likely somebody's already done it. And it's just a matter of finding it, getting the right search term, and stumbling onto it almost by accident. But I had ideas of how I might do it myself, but this was just perfect. I usually use Tinkercad or Fusion 360 most of the time. Yeah, there's a lot of them, but for most of the stuff, it's so simple. Tinkercad really handles it. So
is that Tinkercad parametric?
No, well, it has some items in it. Some of its parts are parametric. Mostly, it's just very small primitive items that you can add and subtract together. And
features you bring down, modify.
Yeah, you pull in a box or a circle or a hole or a cylinder or a cone or a pyramid, all manners. And then you tell it it's either a hole, so it will subtract material, or it's a solid that will add material.
360 is completely different.
Totally different beast. Oh yeah.
I did
Yeah.
CAD 40 years.
Yeah, there's so many different CAD programs out there now. FreeCAD is also quite good. I use a Bamboo P1S. Yeah. It works beautifully for me. I've printed
A lot of stuff.
I found mine used for about I think it's $500 with the AMS spool handler, and I've used it to print primarily PLA, but also PET G, which is the one that's a little better for internal for places where it's going to be outdoors or in the sun. I really like this one that's called high temperature glass filled PLA, which is good for 150 degrees C. Great for printing parts. It's going to be like inside your engine compartment or in some. Yeah, I just if I can't find something else somebody else has designed, I'll just design it myself in one of the various programs. Most of the things it seems I build are for my wife's weaving operations for her various looms. So
Not too much to say.
Nothing to say here either. Can you ask Genesis to come up with a file? Will it actually make? You haven't tried? I meant Gemini, not Genesis. Yeah,
one of the AIs would probably do a design for you as well. I haven't tried it.
I'm surprised.
I use it for everything else.
I know you do. Yeah, yeah, interesting.
Hey, G6KA, Noel, nothing.
WA6HGA Linda, nothing to report.
Excuse me, N6VH. I'll be very brief. I did work a new 6-meter country the other day. I worked Alaska. On 6, that's DX.
N6JOJ, nothing to report.
KN6MJK, Brian, nothing to report.
N6BTF, nothing to report.
Danny, WB6FWS. I'd say hi to Steve up there. How was lunch?
I'm starving. I want to go to your place and have some Mexican food.
There you go. Yeah, and Ron, WA6YOU, there in Fairfax, Virginia. He says he has an early morning meeting in the morning. So, 3-hour time difference. So he went to bed. So, but he's wanted to say greetings to everybody in the San Diego DX Club.
Good evening. This is Ray, WA6NVL, just getting ready for field day this weekend.
Hi, Bob, W6ACU, and I'll say I was not able to work Bouvet. I don't know how many of you did, but listened but didn't hear him. And then 6 meters, I've been very pleased. Now, somebody said that there's a huge opening between the West Coast and Europe 2 days ago, but I didn't see anything.
Mark KI6IT. I've been out of the country for 6 weeks, so it's nice to be back and with the group again.
Tom, W0NI, no report.
Hi, this is Jim K6ZH. Well, Joan and I both did work Bouvet. It was a new one for her, obviously. So first weekend of May, we were at our place in Goldfield, Nevada for the 7th Area QSO party. KG7NV was our call, and we won Nevada, which we haven't done very often there. June VHF contest, I was back in Goldfield, and it was really good. I mean, the day before the contest was much better than the contest weekend, but we worked quite a few guys, and I'm in a rare grid square there, DM17, so that was fun. So about the 6-meter opening, we missed the really big one apparently last Wednesday, but when I got home on Thursday, I worked YL2SM and ES6 RQ. Latvia and Estonia on 6, which is pretty unusual. That was a 5-minute opening. It was just like, fortunately, my JT alert said, new country, new grid. And I came running. So field day, I'm just going to operate from home for a while. And Steve, VK3JA, we'll look forward to seeing you in September or October. Anyway, 6 meters is really good right now. If you have anything at all on 6, get on.
Mike, NA6MB. Let's see. I've been preparing for field day. We're going to a very unique spot this year. We love Lake Poway. It's a beautiful spot, but it's surrounded by hills that are 200-300 feet higher than our location, so we don't get out of there very well. So we're going up high in South Poway to Cole's parking lot up at Community and Scripps Poway Parkway, and I've been working on antennas suitable for installation where there's no trees and no grass and no dirt, just pavement. So it's been an interesting week working on antennas. As far as operating concern, well, Gail and I are gonna do N6AT as the GOTA station. The main station will be N6PWY. Operating, I finally bit the bullet and bought a Windows 11 computer. We were going to change over our Windows 10 to 11s, but they're kind of old, so we decided to bite the bullet on this one and go with a new install, which has been horrendously terrible. I've been working on it for weeks. Everything works individually, nothing works together. So that's the situation right now for FT8. And all the logging and the rotor and stuff works, but getting to work with everything's not working.
Gail, K6GO, and ditto. He's just been buried in that computer trying to make everything integrate and then getting ready for field day. So please come visit. The mayor's issuing a proclamation, and we have 2 city council people are going to attend. So we're fairly proud about that. And to echo what Jim said, Steve, we're going to try to find a date that's good for all of us, and then we will invite all of you. And Steve, on your turn, wants to come here where he sees us sitting around and come and have lunch with us while he's here. So with that.
Can I interrupt and ask a question?
Absolutely, yes.
Is your meetings like today? Is it the 3rd Wednesday or the 4th Wednesday of the month? I can't see. Okay, I'm going to be in San Diego on September, I think it's 30th. So I may be able to join you there. We'll talk about that later.
That would be great.
Okay, we'll work on that later. Thanks.
Okay. See you on email.
What's that? Yeah, it's too late. The week after. Oh, so.
September 3rd. September 30th is the 5th Wednesday.
23rd.
The meeting's the 23rd.
That's okay. I can't make it there then. But we had October 9th as the lunch. So that's still good for me. We can do that still. And Elijah's there. I found the date on the calendar, so you don't have to answer my email.
Okay. Dennis N6KI. Hello, Steve. I heard you join JIDX. Of course, I can't work here, but I listened to you there. Doing well. We did okay. I got to operate. The rumors of my demise are false, but I almost felt like it. and I wasn't sure I was going to be able to participate in all Asia, but I got about 3 or 4 hours in, and the what's left of my brain they didn't take out is still working. So anyway, good to see you.
Okay, we'll go up to the online people. Steve, go ahead.
All right, we covered the most important stuff there. Good to see you, Dennis, by the way. You look good, and I enjoy hearing you in just about every contest. Mike, if you can keep Windows 10, do it. I don't know how much you've read about online, but so many people are sick and tired of Windows 11, and I'm one of those. I hate it. My desktop, I've still got Windows 10, and it runs great on all the ham radio, everything. The speech from Cezar today was really good. I felt like I was there with him, and I wish I could have said that to him, but I'm sure you all enjoyed it as much as I did. And I don't know what else to say. I'm gonna be in September and in October in town there, and I'm working with Gail and Jim on a get together. Okay, thanks for letting me join up today.
Great, good to see you. Stay well. Chuck Wood, are you still with us? I guess not. Ron, N6XT, go ahead.
Thanks, man and girls. Anyway, I worked a couple new ones on 30 meters since all I have is a peanut station at end fed, 135 feet, 25 feet in the air. Still working on the beam, about 2/3 done with the beam. Now I got to get the Hector out here to help me string the cable for the raising of the tower. because it's about 40 years old. I do not trust it. I've had too many friends that have snapped their beams. So I've got to add the 40, I'm adding a 30 and 40 element to the TB32 step IR. That's where I'm stopped right now there, because it actually got a whole antenna, almost a replacement antenna. It just had a lot more wear. I'd already bought this and this was given to me, so I took the pieces. I'll be putting that together. Also, I'm working on a 6-meter beam. Probably next week. I'll be putting it up about 20 feet in the air right next to my house at the peak of the roof. Not guying it, but bracketing it to that. And it should work all the way. It's a 5-element M squared. That's on the agenda. As far as 11, what happens with ham programs, and I've found this out recently, is that they do not tell basically the guys who run the software, if they're not software engineers, it's really tough because they have to talk to Windows about it. And that's sometimes like talking to the wall, just an experience. Anyway, and I'm not an expert by no means. Like I say, I worked a few new ones. This morning I worked Republic of Korea on 30, and the other new one, and hey, pay as you let's see, play as you pay as you play. If you work any new DXpeditions, or not even DXpedition, DX, it's $5 a pop. And that's an LLTW or a club log. I don't even think they send a card. So that's kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. Anyway, that's about all. And thanks for letting me join you guys. Have a great one. Best DX.
All right, 73, Ron. Andy, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. I had planned to be there tonight, but I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, and I thought I would rather do Zoom instead. No need to expose everyone. And I did put up a new antenna recently. It's an end-fed, about 35 feet up, and then the other end goes up to a tall tree in my backyard. It's a big improvement over what I had, and I'm playing around with FT8 and Whisper and running 10 milliwatts, and I'm getting out all over the place, which just blows my mind that I can do it with 10 milliwatts. But that's about it. Other than that, that's about it. 73, everyone.
73, Mark, you're up next.
All right, well, as Rob knows already, I'm starting to become curious about POTA. And one of the areas that I don't have any experience in is small portable logging software. I've loaded POTA on the go and Polo for Android. And right now I'm in the middle of the RTFM part. So I'm reading lots of manuals and learning how to deal with antennas, portable antennas and things. And if anybody has advice for me, my call sign at Gmail. That's my story.
Okay, very good. Well, 73, the online people, you're excused, and we're going to have our raffle here. I'll let Bud run this.
I'll just reach in and grab one in the name of expediency. Ray, WA6NVL, come on down. And you pull the next ticket. Oops. N6VH. You pull the next ticket.
I certainly will. I won't even look. There you go.
Hey. N6KI. Dennis, come pick a prize. And pick the next ticket. No, you AG6KA. You can pull the ticket on your way by.
Pull the ticket.
Okay. Jim, K6ZH. And you pull the next ticket there. Too.
Okay.
Apparently the speaker's not up for grabs.
No.
WA6HGA. I do believe that's the last one, right? Yep. You're stuck with beer. That's it. That's the last one.
Oh, okay. Well,
I shouldn't say stuck with beer. You're the proud winner of beer.
thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna turn off his microphone here, Jerry.
You got it, buddy.